Hello everyone, I'm Terry Duke, and welcome to my channel. For the past 3 years now, my channel has been predominantly focused on modding content, mostly for the Mount & Blade games, but I also did some for Fallout 4 and XCOM 2. And about a month ago, I got a comment, I don't even remember where, but essentially asking me how I make these mod videos. And I thought, sure, why not? Last week I did a mod video on Bannerlord's Shakuho, but I decided to record some of the process on the side to explain how the videos are actually made. So really, this video is a making of sorts, so let's get to it. When I make a modding video, I usually split my workflow in 5 distinct steps. First, there's the gameplay, then I write the script, then I record the video, then I edit it, and then I upload it. So I'll take you through each steps, and then I'll answer some questions you might have towards the end. So the first step is the gameplay, literally just playing the mod that I'm covering. To do that, I just play the game and I record it on OBS, but the most important part of it is that I actually have a notebook next to me, and what I do is every time I see something interesting from the mod, I make a note of it. But more importantly, when I'm writing stuff down, I also look at the timecode from OBS, and I mark the time at which I saw, the interesting feature. And this is very crucial when we get to the editing part, so, I'll tell you about that when we get there. But yeah, that's really the first part, just playing the mod. However, even that comes with its own challenges. So when I make an actual mod review, like a mod that I've never played before, that's usually how it goes. I just play the mod, I see something interesting, I write it down. But there have been occasions in the past where the mods that I'm covering are not mods that people recommended to me. Those are mods that I actually played in my personal time. So especially when I was making my XCOM 2 and Fallout 4 videos, for example, those are mods that I actually played in my own personal time before I decided to make videos on them. And so when that happens, the gameplay footage is actually a lot more staged. Instead of, playing the mod and then writing stuff down as it happens, I would work in reverse. Instead, I would write down the mods that I wanted to cover, I wrote down the features, I made a list, and then when I played the game, I would actually go out of my way to seek those features out, to seek those moments, to essentially stage them so I would be able to record them immediately. And the reason I would do that is to keep the gameplay portion of the video as short as possible, because sometimes I could be playing these mods for a very long time, so I'm trying to, condense that. But that's the gameplay portion, and following that is the script. I pretty much write the script for all of my videos. The only times that I went completely unscripted would be with those big rankings that I do, because then when I'm talking about a mod, I only talk about it for 30 seconds to a minute at most, so I'm really keeping it brief, and usually in that context I just, go with it. But most of the time when I'm making a mod review, I really want to make sure that all the things that, really stood out to me are things that I actually talk about, and I try and do it in an order that makes sense. So usually in order to do that, I just write it down and I try and make it concise and to the point. After that, well, it's the recording. And for most videos, I'm never even on camera like this, so all I really do is I take out the microphone, I put on Audacity, and I just read out loud the script that I just wrote. As such, the recording process is usually the shortest step in the entire process, but if I do end up setting up the camera, well, I just got my little tripod over here, and it's essentially the same thing. I have a script in front of me, and I just read it out to the camera. The main extra effort here is that when I am on camera, I actually put on a bit of makeup. I have a bit of foundation on, and it's pretty simple, but it's the extra effort that goes into being on camera. Either way, I'm just reading the script, and that's my footage right there. And that brings us to editing. And usually the first step is the cut of the voiceover. Even when I read out a script, I make a lot of mistakes. I read out the lines multiple times, so it's just about having that first concise narrative that is essentially going to help me map out every single part of the video. And one of the things I like to do is when I cut it out, the moment I change subject or I start talking about something else, I also change the color of the clip on the timeline. That way it also helps me map out what each section of the video is about and when it starts and ends, From there we get into what is for me the most tedious part of making the video, and it's adding the gameplay footage. So you remember what I was talking about, writing the time every single time I made a note on something? Well, this is where it becomes really important, because by the time you have the gameplay footage, we could be talking hours of footage here. So having the time code from where the moments that I'm talking about actually happens, I can quickly go over the OBS gameplay footage, just write the same time code, and usually within 30 seconds to a minute, what I'm talking about is actually there. So here what you can see is what I call the showcase. In pretty much every mod video, whenever there's new items, new armors, I take a moment to record what I call the showcase, which is that I'll put on the armor for my character, then I'll go somewhere where I can see it, and then I'll just do a small camera camera movement to really show the elements. So here, I wrote down the time on when the showcase happened. I have the portion in the video where I talk about how the armors are beautiful. I go find this tiny segment in my 2-hour-long video and I put it on. And I can't understate this, but the visual quality here is nearly perfect. And then rinse and repeat for every single part of what I'm talking about. If there's a siege, and I wrote down somewhere that there's a siege, then I put that on. If there's some battles, if there's some quests. The entire process of editing from there is to just find the moment in the gameplay footage that fits the best for what I'm talking about in the script, and then adding it on to make the entire video. Once that part is done, usually I'm just gonna have what I call B-roll. It's a real term in the industry, it stands for beauty shots. For me, it's a lot of battles, it's a lot of scenery from the mod itself that I'm going to be using while I do my intro in the video and while I do my outro. And once I have all of that, then I move on to the final touches, which is going to be adding music. Personally, I use Epidemic Sound, which is like a subscription service for a lot of royalty-free music, so I usually have a lot of that. Although sometimes I'll also directly take the music from the mod itself. If I really like it, I'm gonna take it out and add it to my video as well. Usually, if there's some more visual elements that I need to go get, if I'm talking about a mod on Nexus Mods, for example, I might grab a screenshot and put it on. And one of the final things is going to be color grading. Now, if I'm not on camera, I don't usually do color grading, but if I am, well, this is what it looks like. I'm not really an expert by any means. I have some basic knowledge on it, but even then, my camera's not that advanced, so I usually just do a few tweaks. But even then, another instance in which I might do color grading is if I'm playing in a part of the game that is dark, like at night. Usually I find that it's just too dark unnecessarily, so I'll actually just boost the exposure while dropping the highlights and the whites so it's not like too much. And inevitably, because I do it so quickly, it's not gonna look great, but I do find that it is more pleasant to look at than when it's just like regular, completely dark, you know what I mean? But from there, that's basically the entire video. I had my voiceover, I added the gameplay footage that supports what I'm saying visually, and I have all the final touches, and that's the video. From there, we move on to the final step, which is the upload of the video. And from there, the first thing that I usually work on, which I might do at the same time as I'm editing, is I'm going to be doing the thumbnail. Usually most people would do them in Photoshop, for example, but I have like an absolute allergy of Photoshop. I have no interest whatsoever in learning it, so I actually do most of my thumbnails directly into Premiere Pro. Regardless of which game I'm covering, I have one Premiere Pro project for all of my videos in that game, and I'm gonna have a sequence called thumbnails, which is literally just all my thumbnails that I'm doing directly on the timeline. Some graphic designers would look at the way I'm doing it and really like, you know, cringe at it, and I'm sorry, but for me it actually works decently. And in the case of Shakuho, or any other mod really, what I like doing is I'll just look quickly at the mod page to see if they have interesting previews that I could use to do my thumbnails directly, but if they don't, then most of the games I play have some kind of photo mode where you can take screenshots in-game, and what I'll do then is I'll try and place my characters in a way that's interesting, and then I'll just take a picture of that and I'll incorporate it into the thumbnail. In terms of the actual colors themselves, I like to make it like highly saturated. I find that bright, vibrant colors are more attractive for people, but from there, there's no real recipe on how to make like the perfect thumbnail. I usually just try something, and then if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I did hire a professional graphic designer on a few occasions. One of the biggest videos I did in the past year, my absolute ridiculous ranking of Warband mods. This one I hired someone to do it for me, and I just sent him a bunch of screenshots from the many different mods that I played, and that's what we ended up with. But besides that, I mean, you upload the video, and then, you know, there's the video description. Usually over there, I'm always going to link the mods that I actually cover in the video, but I also have on my computer a document with like a description preset with all my links, which I just copy paste into every video. Normally, I'm also going to add the cards at the end, which is like the recommendations at the end for people to click on. I might add a couple of cards, which are like the links that appear occasionally throughout the video. Everybody does that. And then, of course, there's the timestamps, which is, you know, like if there's an intro in the video, and then if I switch mods, if I talk about a different topic, I like to have different timestamps in my videos for people to skip around. And that's when, again, the colors that I used on my voiceover really come in handy, because it makes it very easy to clearly see where the topic changes on the timeline, and I can quickly browse over there and copy paste the timecode, and that makes it much simpler for me. And for pretty much every video, that's really how it works. That's been my process for the past 3 years, and I keep polishing it, trying to find new ways of making it ever simpler for me, but really, you're always gonna go through pretty much the same steps. And for me, like I said, like the most tedious for me is really just the editing part. I like editing, but always looking back and forth between the gameplay footage and trying to line it up with what I say, I find this to be very mentally taxing, but you know, it's part of the job. In terms of questions that some people might have, I'm taking a few guesses here, but one of the main questions I would assume is, how long does the whole process of making a video take? And it really depends on the type of videos. I do a lot of single mod reviews, like Shokuho, that was one of them, but I also do a lot of videos where I will be reviewing multiple mods and then ranking them. And then there's the special ranking videos, you know, like the best gun mods, the best historical mods that I've done for Warband, for example. The easiest of the bunch is going to be the special rankings, because usually when I do a special rankings, I'm just recycling gameplay footage from previous videos. So I make the video, I write the ranking, but there's hardly any gameplay footage to do for myself because it already exists from previous videos. So in that case, I'll just copy-paste the gameplay footage from those other videos into my main timeline instead of having to look around, and because of that, it saves me a lot of time. The fact that I also don't really do a lot of gameplay footage also saves me a lot of time. So these videos are done fairly quickly. The longer videos are the ones where I'm reviewing multiple videos and ranking all of them, because then I'm actually covering a lot of mods, so the gameplay section is going to be fairly long because I'm playing multiple mods. That said, this is where it might surprise a bunch of people, but I don't actually play each individual mod for an extensive period of time. The way I like to think about it, and it's gonna come kind of pretentious, but I like to think of it as like, you know, like those chefs in cooking shows that have to judge a dish by taking a single bite. You know, the point is, if they had to eat the entire dish every time and there's like 8 other people, you would never see the end of it. So what they try to do is have all of the flavors in a single bite and just go with that. So when it comes to my content and how I review mods, I like to have that same approach. Usually I'll spend the first hour starting a regular game without cheats to quickly see all the stuff that's new. Is there a new world map? Is there new items? Is there new quests? New music? New bandits to fight? Are the tournaments any different? You know, stuff like that. But usually by the second hour, I already have a good idea of how all of that is. So during the second hour of gameplay, I'll actually cheat to level myself up, give myself a lot of money, buy all the coolest items in the mod. I'll quickly get into big battles. I'll try and create my own factions, and I'll quickly see from that if in the late game there's also new features, whether that's more kingdom management options or if there's a story that plays out in the mod. So really because of that, like when I make like these main videos where like I cover like 10 different mods, I don't usually spend more than 3 hours on a single mod. In my defense, when you've played as many mods as I have, you tend to quickly see the changes and you just have to move on quickly, because again, the same way, you know, if a chef had to eat every single dish, if I had to spend like a good 10-15 hours on each mod, then it would take me like 1 to 2 months to make a single mod video. I can't do that. So I try to have all the features crammed up very quickly and then I move on. The exception to that is either when like a mod that I have to play has been really hyped up for me, I'll try and give it more of a chance. For example, Prophecy of Pandora. The only time I covered this mod was in like my second mod video ever, and I did spend like 15 hours on it. And this is what I ended up saying in my videos whenever I bring it up, is that, you know, when I was playing the first parts that I usually do, you know, by myself, like without cheats, just trying to experience the mod, I found that everything took really long. And by the time I leveled myself up and used cheats to really get to the late game of the mod, then I found that the mod was still restricted by a lot of grind that was essentially unskippable. So that's why I still ended up being very harsh on it, and why a lot of people disagree with me. But other than that, like the main exception is that I've occasionally made like single mod reviews, like Shokuho for example, the video I just made. I must have spent like anywhere from 12 to 15 hours on it to really get into it. For 57 AD, I did an exclusive review for it, and I must have played like 10 hours on it. So as to how long the whole process takes, well, if you were doing a single mod, I would probably cover the gameplay in like 2 days. The script doesn't actually take as long, but it's still kind of tedious, so I could spend half a day on it. Recording is actually the shortest. Depending on the length of the script, this is how long it takes for me to record it, so we're usually talking 30 minutes to an hour. And editing is the most tedious and is the one that I procrastinate the most, but if I didn't, most mod videos I can edit in like 6 hours. So the reality is that if I was doing a 30-hour week like really consistently on my channel without procrastinating or having any other kind of things going on, I could probably make one of those videos every week. The main problem is that I do have other things and I do have low energy sometimes and I do procrastinate a lot, so a lot of times a video that could be done in 1 week is going to be done in 2 weeks instead. And one of those bigger videos that could be done in 2 weeks can sometimes take 3 weeks to a month. So there is a lot of work that goes into those videos, but it's not crazy either. Yeah, really, that's about it. So thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any more questions, well, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.